These days about the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, and what role they play in assessing and gathering data as it relates to gun usage in America, both defensive gun usage and crimes committed with a firearm. Now questions have emerged over whether or not the CDC has slanted their data with a bias against gun owners through their National Violent Death Reporting System, which has a very long acronym, or NVDRS, Neverters. The website, thetruthaboutguns.com, points out that the CDC uses the word violence in ways that paint a picture that isn't entirely accurate. And as the writer Dean Weingarten points out, quote, violence is morally neutral, like gravity. Violent acts can be good, bad, or neutral. A thunderstorm is violent. It is morally neutral. Defense of self or the nation can be violent. It is morally good. Aggression against individuals or groups can be violent and tends to be morally bad, end quote. Now, he goes on to point out that the CDC chooses to group all of these various forms of violence into one category, which is violent deaths. Now, the result is that, for instance, a person who shot an armed intruder in their home would add to their violent death count. And that is a field day for anti-gun advocates who are more than happy to cite the CDC as authoritative while ignoring the 2013 report commissioned by previous President Barack Obama without noting the lack of context. It's not an oversight. The CDC says on their own website that they are performing precisely this broad stroke. In fact, here's a quote from the CDC. NVDRS defines a death due to violence as a death resulting from the intentional use or physical force or power against oneself, another person, or against a group or community. NVDRS collects information about homicides, suicides, deaths by legal intervention, excluding executions, and deaths of undetermined intent, end quote. Here to discuss how this categorization of violence can and does mislead the public on gun usage is the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center and author of many books, including The War on Guns, John Lott. John, always good to see you. Thank you for being here. Incredibly misleading indeed.
Well, it's great to talk to you again, Dana. Look, I don't think most people kind of understand the differences between terms like homicides and murders. The CDC always just uses homicides, and the big difference between homicides and murders is that homicides include justifiable homicides. And as you say, it's not really obvious to me why one wants to lump together a case where somebody murders somebody versus somebody who kills somebody in self-defense to protect themselves, protect somebody else. But and that creates all sorts of different types of problems. So, for example, when one makes comparisons across countries, the United States has a homicide rate that's below the average, below the median for other countries, but it would be even lower relative to other countries if you had compared murder rates, because the United States has relatively more justifiable homicides than other countries do.
Yeah, and with that, I mean, and of course we always hear those comparisons all the time, but the way that this is being categorized and, whether something is morally neutral or, I mean, obviously self-defense, if you're using a firearm and use of fatal force to defend yourself and your loved ones against a threat, the idea that that's classified as and included in their violent death count, I mean, in a way, it's shaming individuals who are defending themselves by the way that they're categorizing it. I mean, there's why do they not take, what's stopping them from taking the time to differentiate between that and being a little bit more realistic about this? Or is it just black and white for them?
Look, I agree with you completely. You have countries like, let's say, the UK, which has a violent crime rate that's twice what's in the United States. If I could have somebody go and kill somebody who's doing something bad and reduce the violent crimes, rape or robbery or something else that's going on there, seems to me that's good. I mean, do I like the fact that somebody who's a rapist gets killed? I mean, I suppose in an ideal world it'd be better if nobody died from anything. But if the alternative is to have an innocent victim being raped or brutally assaulted, then I would say on net that's good, because even though the attacker there was killed, you prevented what would have been a gruesome, violent crime from occurring.
always misleading the way that this is all counted. And you mentioned as well, because as you said, every single country they classify things differently. And you wrote on your website, crimepreventionresearch.org, how, for instance, just UK where it concerns homicides, etc., the way that they classify those and the way that the United States tallies homicides, or you could say violent gun deaths, or however they want to word it, explain that a little bit, because that's one of the things that goes into false comparisons, because of the different way in which they categorize all of this data, that apparently everyone here in the United States thinks, no, everyone has the same process that America does and our federal agencies do when they're tallying all this information, and that's incorrect.
Right. Let's just take a step back for a second here, and that is, most countries don't have anywhere near the type of detailed data that we have in the United States. I'll give you a simple comparison since you bring up firearm deaths. 45% of the countries in the world don't report firearm homicides, let alone firearm murders. And the countries that don't report those numbers are the countries that have the highest homicide rates. So what gun control advocates often will do is they'll only look at firearm homicide rates across countries, and that makes the United States look relatively bad. We're relatively high in that, but it's not because we're a more dangerous country. It's because the countries with the highest homicide rates just don't even bother to report firearm homicide rates. They just report total homicide rates. As I said before, if you look at total homicide rates, we're below the average, we're below the median country in the world. And that's just because of who decides to report what. And it gives people real misimpression about how the United States compares. And I think a lot of gun control advocates understand what data is missing, and it's just a choice that they make in order to make the United States look worse than it is.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that someone using fatal force to defend themselves, that could be classified as a bad thing, and then further cited by anti-gun advocates in an argument to disarm individuals and render them unable to defend themselves in such a manner. Again, it is the most bizarre approach, and this kind of gets into the CDC studying all of this. I mean, I just will never understand why they have such difficulty making that slight differentiation. It would just make it a little bit more palatable for everyone. But I would imagine, John, is it political motivation?
I can't get really into people's heads, but I can tell you this is true throughout the federal government. It's just not with the CDC. You look at places like the Department of Justice. You maybe frequently see those little boxes on the front of USA Today, which will say the top 10 guns used in crime. Well, why not use the National Crime Victimization Survey to go and show the top 10 guns used defensively by people? You go through these things, and, some of it may be unintentional, some of it I think may be intentional, but I just wish we would have, the Trump people have been great on many things. Unfortunately, I wish the people in the Department of Justice would go back and kind of systematically change a lot of the way these numbers are biasly reported, but they haven't done that yet. And but because I can give you like 50 examples of the surveys and other things that they do, just like when reporting crime guns and not guns used defensively by people to stop crime, to provide some balance there.
Right, and we definitely need that balance. Well, you do a good job as it is, John. John Lott, always good to see you. crimepreventionresearch.org. John, thank you for your perspective.
Crimeresearch.org.
Crimeresearch.org. At one time, I'm going to stop adding words to your URL.
Okay.
You'll have it.
Appreciate you having me. Thanks. Have
Thank
a good
you,
day.
John.